What's going on, guys? It's Cal here from Buffalo Sports Center. I just got done watching the Kevyn Adams press conference, and, there's some things to recap from it, but, I think first things first, let's just talk about what a joke this franchise has been for the last 14 years. No playoffs, 14 years. That seems improbable. Again, you could look at any league. Maybe it makes sense in football, but probably not. You got to luck yourself in once in a while, right? The NHL, especially in the NHL. I mean, this is a league where almost half the teams make the playoffs. It's an absolute joke that the Sabres cannot get in the playoffs. Again, right? Top 3 teams per division and then 2 wildcard spots. The Sabres, again, that playoff format has changed over the years, but the Sabres are going to be 14 years with no playoffs if they do not make it this year. What an absolute joke. So Kevyn Adams faces the media today, gets hit with some hard questions, some softballs. There's a good mix. I think the beat reporters did a good job today. But Kevyn Adams continues to give bland, nonchalant answers. Again, one of the highlights in that one, they asked him about the average age of the Sabres. Again, the Sabres are still average, the youngest team in the league. It's been that way, or the third youngest team in the league for the last 5 or so years. Again, historically, you look at that, young teams usually don't do too well. Maybe they'll make the playoffs, but they don't go, very far. You need some veterans on this team. So, a good question proposed. Kevyn Adams laughs and says, what do you want me to do? Sign Craig Anderson to bump that age by 1 or 2. Just, a complete smart-ass remark by Kevyn Adams. And, again, if you're going to be joking about that with, how shoddy of a job he's done so far with this organization. Anyway, what a joke. What was also brought up in the press conference was, the lack of development. Again, guys like Jack Quinn, Dylan Cousins, Matthias Samuelsson, Owen Power, guys who have just struggled in certain aspects of the game. Owen Power was definitely brought up quite a few times. Again, Owen Power is doing good offensively, but his defense continues to be soft. I'm not worried about Owen Power as much as I'm worried about the forwards like Jack Quinn and Dylan Cousins, right? A lack of production this year, a lack of physicality, a lack of confidence. It was brought up the Yuri Kulik situation last night in overtime. He has a breakaway, right? And he doesn't take that shot. How do these players not know to use their strength, right? Guys like Jack Quinn and Yuri Kulik have to shoot the puck every chance they get. They're shooters. That is what they are on this team to do. And if Yuri Kulik is not being told to shoot the puck in that situation, we either have the worst coaching staff of all time or an incompetence with our developmental system, and there's no in between. Just an absolute joke from last night watching that one. But again, how could you not be fired up after watching that press conference? A lack of accountability, which is Kevyn Adams' favorite word. He says accountability every other word, but there's a lack of it every single time, right? Nobody's more mad than him. Terry Pegula's involved in everything. He's given us nothing but, everything we've needed to succeed. It's an absolute joke. You cannot have a hockey team miss the playoffs 14 years in a row. What a laughingstock. Again, if I'm any other GM, why would you even respect the Sabres, right? And then he brings up the point that every player has Buffalo on their no-trade list, so it's a hard situation, and you shouldn't blame him because he's doing the best he can. I get it, but let's look at a couple years ago. You missed the playoffs by 1 point. What did you do at the trade deadline? What did you do at free agency that year? Absolutely nothing. You have a situation where you're right in the playoff mix. Your team is scoring 6 goals a game. All you need is a little bit of goaltending, a little bit of defense, and you're on the board. And they don't do anything. Again, Jacob Chikrin's an option. They do nothing at the trade deadline. And guess what? They miss the playoffs. So if you want to talk about, until we make the playoffs, nobody wants to come here, you had a prime opportunity to get to the playoffs, and they don't do it. So again, it's mind-boggling how stupid this organization is, how dumb the people in the higher-ups are, and again, it is hard to make moves when you haven't made the playoffs for 13 years. I get it. But that's your job, right? And if you can't do that, you got to go. It's plain and simple. You look at guys like Tim Murray, Jason Botterill, they at least made moves. They made moves. So it obviously isn't impossible to make moves. Last thing I want to talk about in this video is the salary cap. We have 10% of our salary cap unused right now. Great point. I believe Mike Harrington brought it up in the press conference. You're not going to be signing Devin Levi or Jack Quinn to big extensions this offseason because they've looked terrible this year. So now that should give you some flexibility to sign guys. Kevyn Adams says, we're not going to spend to the cap ceiling just to spend. It has to make sense. That sounds like, a routine answer where, okay, our owner isn't letting us spend unless he approves of it or something like that. I don't know. How are you not spending money? Again, another question that was proposed, why do you not even bring in a guy like Jason Zucker, another veteran on this team, to at least add some help? Hopefully this puts pressure on Kevyn Adams. Again, I don't care if you have to overpay. I don't care about money anymore at this point. You have to make the playoffs. Once you make the playoffs, you set everything up. Then you can start building your core and add towards the future. Till you make the playoffs, your team is nothing. No one wants to come here. It's just a joke. Not every player in the league has Buffalo on their no-trade list because not every player has a no-trade clause or a no-trade list. It's just, it's a lame excuse from Kevyn Adams. Again, maybe the 4 guys that you're interested in have, Buffalo on your no-trade list, but that's your job as a GM to, go in there and, negotiate in free agency. Maybe a guy, has written Buffalo off, but that's your job as a GM. Sell the city, sell the team. And Kevyn Adams has done a terrible job of that. Again, bringing Jason Zucker in was a good move, but he significantly overpaid for it. And that's what you're going to have to do until you make the playoffs. So if you're not okay spending money, you have to sell the team. I mean, again, I'll continue to say it. If you own a professional sports team and your goal is not to win, then you have to go. It's plain and simple. People always bring up the Bills with Terry Pagula. Look at the Bills. Look at the Bills. Again, Brandon Beane got very lucky with him. He's an amazing GM. Sean McDermott's been a very solid coach. You get lucky drafting Josh Allen. Again, I mentioned in the live stream, you draft Josh Rosen, and all of a sudden this team's in a 34-year playoff drought, right? It's one of those things where a little bit of luck is involved, and again, how you miss the playoffs, this would be 14 years in a row. It's just despicable, and it just shows you the incompetence in the organization. You have to be purposely trying not to win to miss the playoffs 14 years in a row. So hopefully the Sabres can get it on track. Again, Jacob Trouba's name's out there. This video will be released sometime in the night. So anything that happens from the press conference end to tonight will not be talked about in this video. Hopefully the Sabres make some moves because there's still a lot of games left, right? Over 50 games to play. Sabres are right in the playoff mix. The East has been very mid to start this year, but a 5-game losing streak going on 14 years, no playoffs. Something's got to change. Yes, you do have to make a move at this point, right? Again, it's just what a joke. I'm just speechless with this team. Cannot believe it. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you guys think of Kevyn Adams? Do you guys like him as a GM? Do you hate him? Again, I'll still give him some credit. He's done a good job in the draft, but he does nothing with the prospects, right? They sit in Rochester and they lose games with the Amherst. That's not doing any good for the Sabres organization. So you got to be able to trade the prospects when again, you load that bottom 6 up with, veteran players. If you're not going to give the prospects room to slot in there, an example like Tyson Kozak just wasted time until he gets up here. Why even get the prospects? Why even keep the prospects in Rochester to develop? They should be traded in a package deal to get veteran players for the Sabres. But leave a like on the video, subscribe, and have a good one.